Is making the newspaper this morning. We're joined by the community editor and columnist at the National, Shona Craven, and the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, Shona, thanks both for being with us this morning. Let's get into it. Charlotte, you're going to take us through this one, which is in the Mirror.
Yeah, so this is about Donald Trump, who obviously rocked the world with his China trade war. He just casually tweeted, well, actually not tweeted, on his Truth Social.
He calls them truths, which I heard the other day, which I did not like.
Just casually dropped in, oh, actually, we'll probably drop it down to 80% against China. And then he palmed the blame off over onto Scott B, who's Scott Bessent, who's off to Geneva to try and sort of de-escalate this whole thing. And Trump tweeted, 80% tariff on China seems right, up to Scott B.
Yeah,
casual.
incredible, just...
And Scott B's
completely upend global trade and then send a post and do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I spoke to Kim Darroch a little earlier and he said that's the most important thing happening this weekend, that meeting between China and the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems the Financial Times have a bit more analysis on this. It seems that the chances of this producing a deal are perhaps very low. And as we always expect from Trump, you know, it's all part of the strategy of doing a deal, making these statements. You know, nothing's accidental, but who knows what the outcome will actually be.
The art of the deal.
It's a hell of a bit of theatre. It's keeping us all very entertained or something like that. Anyway, Shona, you can take us through this in The Guardian.
Yeah, so The Guardian has a story about the Prime Minister's ambitious plan for stronger EU ties. I would agree, it sounds ambitious. He's saying during a visit to Norway, I want a closer relationship on security, on defence, on trade and on the economy.
It's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fantastic, but as we know, I want doesn't always get. And the way this is reported is talking about aligning with the EU on food standards, working more closely on law enforcement, and also supporting a controlled youth mobility scheme, which we've had trailed for a while. So this is all part of this reset of the UK's relationship with the EU. But, I mean, it doesn't mean that we're going to get what Starmer wants. And what's actually not mentioned in this article is some quite important stuff that came out earlier in the week, suggesting that the EU has said no, for example, to UK accessing Eurodac, which is the EU's fingerprint database, which would allow the UK to know if an asylum seeker had been rejected elsewhere in the EU. So the EU are not just going to roll over and say to the UK, which, you know, left and slammed the door on its way out, you can have everything you want and we'll just accept it even though you're no longer a member state. We are now a third country, just like all the other third countries that might queue up and say, can we have this, can we have that from the EU? So it's quite a positive spin, I would say, in The Guardian. I'm a little bit more pessimistic.
Well, having got into Europe earlier in the week and seeing what it's like queuing into the third country, it's not pleasant. I mean, I haven't got the front page there, Shona, you have. Does the word Brexit come up?
Well, yes, it does, actually. And I meant to say, Keir Starmer reckons the British public has moved on from Brexit.
Oh, have we?
I'm sure the people of Scotland have not moved on from Brexit, but we're to look forward, not back, apparently.
All right, I'm here for that, sort of. Let's, Charlotte, you're going to take us through this one.
Yeah,
in the
I'm
Mail.
going to read you the headline because it's so compelling. It's striking, really. Prince Harry charity admits human rights abuses after Rangers raped tribeswomen. So this was a big Mail on Sunday. Explosive investigation last January, and there's been a probe ever since, and now the results of the probe have come out. And, you know, it's more bad news for Harry, who's reeling from his Centre Bali disaster, his other African charity. You know,
this is the other charity?
Yeah, so this is his other African charity, and the rangers that protect these parks, it's called African Parks, have been brutal to the local people in the area and to the Baka, which is an indigenous tribe, who have been using the area for millennia to roam for food and forage for food, and they've been brutally attacking. One man was left for dead. And, you know, Harry has been informed of this result from this probe, which was conducted by a London law firm. And, you know, it will just be terrible news for him. He's not going through a good time at the moment. He's getting bad news after bad news. He's the former president of this charity. And, you know, it's quite tragic, really, because, of course, it had good intentions, but they didn't, you know, carry it out in the right way.
The due diligence done, and of course the people involved as well will be going through a terrible time. Shona?
Yeah, so the Eye has quite a small but quite striking story about NHS England facing a summer of strikes as a result of unprecedented job cuts. That's what the Doctors Association lobbying organisation is describing them as. Some details that come out of this, almost half of NHS England trusts are already cutting services, over a third are reducing clinical posts, and then a quarter have said they'll need to close some services. This is in order to fill a 6.6 billion deficit. They're being told you just have to cut. I mean, we were talking earlier about the potential transformational effect on the NHS of weight loss jabs and how perhaps the demand could be reduced for services, but it's obviously very backwards to close the services before there's any chance for that sort of change to take place. And one of the centres that might close, we've got rehab centres, diabetes services for children and palliative care. This is one of the services that might be cut according to a poll by NHS Providers, which is a membership organisation for trusts. I mean, given that we're looking at assisted dying legislation at Westminster and indeed at Holyrood, it's depressing indeed to read that trusts are reducing their palliative care services. And so the impact of all this could well be more strikes. Obviously, people will remember very recently, between 2022 and 2024, there were strikes. And as you can see, if there's going to be fewer posts, then the remaining staff are going to have a lot more work to do with a lot less
Which was part of the reason
money.
for the strikes in the first place.
Exactly. So people might say, oh, well, they got their deal. Why aren't they happy? Well, they're not happy because they're losing colleagues and losing services and just storing up more problems for the future with health.
Huge pressure on healthcare workers. My sister is one and she feels it. So hope that gets resolved as quickly as possible. Charlotte.
Well, speaking of things getting resolved quickly.
So quick. Lovely segue.
Well, obviously we have a new pope, and that actually all came about quite quickly, I think. And what we've now learned is that he watched Conclave, the movie.
I love it.
To prepare for it, because he had no idea what to expect. He'd never been in one before, and he said his brother said he needed to know how to behave. It was actually his brother who found out this information, because his brother just asked him casually, oh, I bet you watched Conclave as a joke. And he said, no, I haven't seen it. Of course I watched Conclave, yeah.
Love it.
And I haven't seen it, but I gather it portrays backstabbing and all sorts.
It's a brilliant thriller. I mean, I watched it just the other week to try and research the coverage I'll have to do. It's great.
Yeah, so it must have terrified him, though. He thought, God, what am I walking into
Well, we
here?
don't know. Was he watching it to prepare for others to backstabbing, or was he learning?
The
horse trading backstabbing. We don't know. He seems like a nice guy. He's not there in the behind the
Such a
scenes.
prescient film. I've got to see it.
Yeah, it's good. It's well worth watching. Well worth watching. All right, and we've got time now for a story that is good fun.
Yes, I mean, possibly one of the most important stories in the paper today. Not all chimpanzees drum alike. A team of researchers have analysed more than 5,000 drumming episodes recorded across 11 groups of chimpanzees. And apparently, depending on where in Africa you're listening to these drumming things, you might hear something that sounds like jazz, or you might hear something more like a rock drummer. So they are learning these different rhythms, and it's being passed on through the generations. But also within that, there's difference, so that they can identify by listening out from more than a kilometre away who's doing that drumming, who's signalling to the rest of their troop that they want to communicate with each other.
So, brilliant. So they all have different music tastes, which is very, very encouraging to me. All right, Charlotte, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you again soon. All right, plenty more to come on the breakfast programme. We'll be back at the top of the next hour. We'll bring you, of course, the very latest on the situation between India and Pakistan, and we'll be in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, where the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is meeting other senior European leaders. Stay with us.